Hi, Chelsea, and welcome. And I hope it's a beautiful sunny day where you are. I am not far from London. I'm about 50 minutes by train from London. And it is a stunning sunny day. And I'm just looking out on the garden and all the spring flowers and the birds and feeling really good about life. Hi, Rodney. Lockdown, yes, aren't we all? We're all locked down, and isn't it just, it's a case of making the most of every day, and what you're doing right now, investing in yourselves and coming on a webinar to learn and grow is a fantastic way to not only get through this period of lockdown, but to absolutely thrive and keep growing and keep evolving. And it's really important that we're all getting stronger through this time, and not just seeing it as a period of lockdown that we've got to get through. So I'm really excited about being with you again today. And also, I'm really excited that Karen has booked me for 2 more webinars, which I'm so excited about. Now, I just heard an email coming in, so I'm going to just shut down my emails. Excuse me. Right, that's done. I'm now back with you. So I'm just going to give it another minute while we wait for some other people to join us. And then the webinar itself is about 45 minutes. And then there will be 15 minutes Q&A. So as I'm going through, if anything comes into your mind that you want to ask me, then just pop it in the chat box and I will answer all those questions at the end, just so that I can continue with the flow of the presentation. And because so many people log into this, that if we stop and do questions halfway through, then we can get a little bit distracted. So wherever you are today, I hope you're feeling good. I hope you've got into some sort of routine that is helping you to thrive through these times, and that you're working. I know for some of you, you may be furloughed, which is something we're doing in the UK. I think you're pretty much doing it all over the world. So you may actually not be working, but it doesn't mean that you can't carry on learning and growing, which of course is what you're doing today. So it's 11 o'clock your time, 10 o'clock my time. So let's kick off. And this webinar, Becoming More Significant, came about about 2 years ago, one night when I couldn't sleep. And I sat up in bed and I very unusually stretched for my phone. I don't normally look at my phone in the middle of the night, but I'd been awake for ages. And I thought, why don't I use the time and learn something? So I tapped into a webinar, and this next quote came up. Well, actually, first of all, while I'm just talking about it, I'm just going to, hold on, let me just make sure I can get the next slide. There we go. While I'm just talking about it, I just wanted to put a little bit of background on me there. So I'll just leave that up for a minute. Yeah, a quote came up on this webinar that really resonated with me. You know, have you ever had those kind of light bulb moments when somebody says something and it just hits you and you think, wow? Well, that was the impact that this next quote I'm going to share with you had on me. And it's such an impact that I started to do research around it. And then I developed a coaching program, a keynote talk, a masterclass, a series of articles. And now I'm in the middle of writing a book about becoming more significant. And the quote was one from the wonderful Oprah Winfrey. And I'm just going to share it with you now. Don't worry about being successful. Work towards becoming more significant, and the success will naturally follow. So what did that mean to me? Well, at the time, I was striving for more success, as we all do, more clients, more money in the bank, more financial security, more. And when I read this, I just thought, wow, yes. Becoming more significant. Now that's much more exciting than becoming more successful. And if you think about success, we very much measure our own success and the success of other people in terms of what we can see externally. So it's things like what size of house we live in or other people live in, what size of car we drive, what kind of car we drive, the people we hang out with, the holidays we go on, the clothes we wear. And it's all very external. And the trouble with measuring success in terms of material wealth is it's incredibly addictive. The more we have, the more we tend to want. And I'm sure you all know seriously successful, high-profile people in the media, in film and TV, entrepreneurs, business leaders, etc., who have got everything that they need in terms of material wealth, but they're seriously unfulfilled and looking for something to bring more meaning to their lives. And you know, very few of us on our deathbeds will want to talk about the size of house we lived in, or the car we drove, or how much money we have in the bank. Most of us, when we're just about to shuffle off this mortal coil, will want to know that we've made a real and lasting difference in the world, that we've had a positive impact on the people that we've shared our lives with and that we've worked with, and that is going to go on long after we've gone. And that's what significance is all about. It's about the impact that we have on other people. And it's not just about leaving a legacy, it's also about living our legacy. And I can't say it any more eloquently than this wonderful next quote. Success is winning. Significance is helping others win. Success leaves a fingerprint, while significance leaves a footprint on the hearts and minds of others. Isn't that just wonderful? So what I want to do today is to share some of the things that I've been doing and some of the things that I also share in my coaching programs and masterclasses, ways in which we can all become much more significant right now, because when we're being significant, the success naturally follows. So without further ado, let's move on. And these are some of the aspects of becoming more significant that I want to talk about today. And the first of those is flow. So I'd really love if any of you have got an idea of what being in flow and working in flow is all about, would you put it in the chat box? Because I'd love to see what your comments are. So add something in if you know what flow is. And then powering up, being the best version of ourselves mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, that enables us to be more significant in everything that we do. So I'm going to be looking at some ways in which we can all power up right now. And then evolution and growth is one of our basic needs. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of need triangle, if you remember, the top pinnacle of that triangle is self-actualization. And that is all about tapping into more of our potential. It's about continually evolving and growing and stretching and challenging ourselves. So I'm going to be looking at ways in which we can do that. And then it's about sharing your value, because there's no point in evolving and growing if you're keeping all that knowledge and wisdom and insight to yourself. So how can we share what we're learning? And then I want to finish on a topic that's really close to my heart, a real passion of mine. And that's about being totally present. So let's just move on a little now. I don't know whether you have all been aware of Contribution Compass. I know that it's something that Karen uses with all her clients that come onto her recruitment books. And this taking a profile in 2012 completely changed my life. And this profile is very much based on finding your natural energy and then operating in flow. And I can see there's a good comment there about flow. Flow, when your spiritual, emotional, mental, physical states are being in line with your purpose, you exist in a state of energy and flow. That is wonderful. Thank you so much for that, that comment there. Absolutely. Flow is, it's the path of least resistance. It's kind of an unfolding of our lives into wholeness and harmony. And it's when we find our true pathway and we spend most of our time doing the work we were put on this planet to do, and life just flows. And I'm going to explain it a little bit more in a moment. But I talked about finding your natural energy, and in the contribution compass spectrum, there are 4 natural energies. The top one is activating, which is very much about being a catalyst and innovating and brainstorming and strategy and being at the start of anything new. Very exciting energy. The inspiring energy on the right of the spectrum is all about inspiring others, about mentoring and coaching others, about leading a team and inspiring people into action. And the sustaining energy is about getting things done, hitting deadlines, moving projects forward, energizing the team, getting them involved and building long-term relationships with clients. And then refining energy is very much about pulling everything together into a way that you can then record. It's about creating data and analysis and research and making things better. And all of us fall somewhere in that spectrum. And on Monday, I'm going to be expanding on this. I'm going to be describing the 8 different profiles in more depth so that you can see where you sit and how you can be more in flow. In advance of that webinar on Monday, I have a special offer on the Contribution Compass profile for you, which I'll share at the end. So if you haven't already taken the profile test, I really recommend you do before Monday, because you'll get so much more information out of it. Information that will literally change your life. So let's move on now to flow. And flow, it's very much like a fast flowing river where you've got the water moving downwards towards the sea. It doesn't matter what gets in the way of that river. It could be a massive boulder. It could be a huge chunk of a tree, but that water will circumnavigate around every single obstacle. And that's what we're like when we're in flow, because we're doing the work that we're totally aligned with, because we're playing to our God-given strengths. We solve problems like never before. We spark up ideas like never before. Now, I'm going to ask you now, how many of you think that you are naturally creative? Just put yes in the chat box if you think you're creative. Because most of us, when I'm running this as a live workshop or a live talk, and I ask people to put up their hands, about 5% of the audience will say they're creative. Now, Pablo Picasso has a wonderful quote. He says, "We're all born artists. The challenge is to remain an artist while we're growing up." And great to see so many of you saying that you are creative. Yes, that challenge is to remain an artist, because if you think about it, when we're at school, if you take yourself back to your early school years, now for some of you that might be a bit of a stretch, for some of you it won't be so long ago, but anyway, take yourself back to that time. And if you remember, you had creative art classes, and the teacher would bring in some new materials and she'd demonstrate how to make something new. And then you'd get these new materials in front of you and you'd start to do the process that she described. And it was really exciting, and you'd get caught up in it. And then you'd think, oh, maybe if I did it this way, that would be better or quicker. And of course, the teacher would walk around the class and she'd come to you and she'd stop and she'd frown and why are you doing it that way? That's not the way I showed you how to do it. Do it the way you were told. That's the way we always do it here. I'm sure that sounds familiar for a lot of you. And you know, we hear that message again and again and again, all through our education. Do it the way you were told. That's the way it's done here. That's the way we always do it. And you know, we often leave school thinking that creativity is somehow wrong. And this feeling can be compounded when we join an organization. We're perhaps in a meeting, we come up with an idea and we're immediately shouted down. We're told that, oh, that's been tried before, it didn't work, or that idea would never work. And once you've done that a few times, you begin to think, okay, I'm not creative. I'm obviously just a doer. So what I will do is I'll just listen in meetings and then I'll make things happen afterwards. And therefore, we can spend the rest of our lives thinking we are not creative. But within all of us, there is creativity. And when you're in flow, when you're doing the work that comes easily and naturally, you spark up that creativity again. And so a day spent in flow is a day of magic, because at the end of the day, you can see the difference that you have made and you are being significant in the workplace. Now, being in flow, it's a bit like going to the gym. When you start, your muscles are weak. You can't lift the heaviest weights. You can't do lots of repetition. But the more you go, the stronger you become, the heavier the weights, the more repetitions you can do. It's the same with being in flow. The more time you spend in flow, the more of an expert you become. And the more you explore your own creativity, your own skill set, and the more you want to learn and grow in your area of expertise. So you're adding real value to the people around you. And of course, that fires up your productivity, which ultimately impacts on the profitability of your business or of the company that you're working in. And that's a magic place to be. Now, when we're in flow and when the people around us are in flow, it massively impacts on engagement and collaboration. Because when you feel valued for the natural skills and strengths you bring to the workplace, and you're enabled to play to those strengths 70 to 80% of your time, you are so fired up and energized that you don't feel threatened by the rising talent around you coming up through the ranks and coming up with new ideas. You want to support them. You want to engage with them. You want to collaborate with them. You are very clear on your value, and you can see how their value enhances what you do together. So this produces a real culture of collaboration. The energy of a team in flow is magical. You've got the right people in the right role, doing the right things for all the right reasons, and a team that work like a well-oiled machine. And if you're not in a team, just a day in flow is a magical thing to have. And I hope many of you are experiencing that already. So I could talk about flow all day, but I haven't got all day, so I'm going to move on. So the next aspect of becoming more significant is becoming the best version of you. Because when we are fired up, when we're feeling energized, when we're feeling fit and healthy, and we're taking quality time out for ourselves, we have got so much more to give to others. And very often when we're busy and we're thinking, I could really do with some exercise, but I haven't got time, we feel that taking time for ourselves is selfish. But the thing is, the more stretched and overwhelmed we are, the less we've got to give to others. By taking time out for ourselves, we boost our own health and well-being and our mental state, and therefore we've got more time and energy and consideration to give to others. So it makes us more selfless, not more selfish. So starting at the top with nutrition, I touched on this on last week's webinar. So if you're on there, there'll be a slight repetition. But right now, it is so important that our immune systems are as strong as they possibly can be. None of us know whether we're going to be hit by COVID-19, and therefore it's important that we enable our immune system to resist any attack from viruses or bacteria that come our way. And one of the strongest ways to do that is through really great nutrition. And when we're a bit stressed out and a bit concerned, which we all are right now, it's so easy just to reach for the fast food, the quick fix, the high carbohydrate, the sandwich, the pizza, the toast, whatever. And that will raise your blood sugar temporarily, but then it will plunge it down again and you'll want more rich carbohydrate food. So the best way to handle your nutrition is to plan it well in advance. This is a great time to experiment with new healthy recipes, to increase the plant-based side of your diet, to include far more vegetables, fruit, healthy shakes, etc. And to plan your day in advance so you've always got on hand some chopped vegetables, some fresh fruit, some nuts, some seeds, some healthy grains, so that if you are working flat out and you stop for lunch, there's something there that can be an instant healthy pick-me-up. And I tell you what, you will feel so much better in the afternoon if you've had a really nutritious lunch. So a question to ask yourself when you're about to put something in your mouth that you know is not the best for you, just ask yourself, how am I going to feel in an hour's time? How am I going to feel tomorrow morning if I have that pizza, that extra glass of wine, that bar of chocolate before I go to bed? How is that going to make me feel? Is it going to fire me up and feel good? Or is it going to make me feel sluggish? Moving on to exercise. Really good to build some sort of exercise into your routine right now. We're a lot more sedentary than we normally are. We're not traveling to and from work. We're not going out and about, meeting colleagues, meeting clients, meeting friends. So our actual exercise level in terms of just the daily activity we do has gone way down. So very important not to become a couch potato, not just to go from bed to desk to sofa, bed, desk, sofa. So build in exercise that you enjoy. I am not a runner and I'm not a gym bunny, but I have a wonderful exercise routine that I love doing that works for me. And because I love it, I do it 5 or 6 times every week. So it might be yoga, it might be Pilates, it might be an exercise video on YouTube. YouTube is packed full of every kind of exercise video you can find. And you feel you're part of a class when you're doing it on video. And also, if you are part of classes already, they may well be doing them online. But build in something that becomes a routine because, as you know, when we exercise, we release those feel-good endorphins, and that counteracts the effects of cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And one of the killers of our immune system is stress. So really important that we're releasing feel-good hormones throughout the day as much as possible. So getting up, walking away from your desk, walking down your garden if you have one, walking around the block if you don't have a garden at regular intervals throughout the day will keep you feeling fired up. I mentioned time out, and if you're on last week's call, you will know that the optimum time to sit in front of a computer to be as productive as possible is 52 minutes. So every 52 minutes, you should be getting up, away from your screen, away from your phone, walking out of doors, making yourself a cup of tea, having a complete break, and the recommended break time is 17 minutes. So do try and integrate that into your day so you're not just sitting for hours and hours and hours staring at a screen. Your brain gets tired and you become less productive the longer you go on beyond that 52-minute time frame. But time out should also be longer than that. It's getting out in nature, having a walk and just appreciating the beauty that is all around us. It's springtime here in the UK. And so I look out of my window and there's just wonderful spring flowers all around and the sun is shining and the sky is blue and it's just good to be alive. So getting out in your garden or out in nature every day will just lift your mood. And then the other thing that is brilliant to do, particularly in times of stress, is meditation. Now, if you don't already meditate, then I suggest starting with guided meditations. And an app I shared last week on my phone is Insight Timer. That's Insight with no S on the end, Timer. It's a free app and it's packed full of wonderful guided meditations, podcasts, music. If you upgrade to the paid version, which is not very much, you can then also have access to all the online courses. That's an invaluable way to start your day and to have a gentle transition from sleep into your work day rather than just leaping out of bed after a night's sleep and straight into activity. Quality sleep, I mentioned, but quality sleep is so important. I'd love to hear how much sleep you get on average. So just pop, how many hours on average do you get into the chat box? Now, as you may know, the ideal amount of sleep each of us need is between 7 and 8 hours. Some of you will be fine on 7, some of you will need 8 hours. About 3% of the population can get by on 4 or 5 hours. An ex-politician in the UK, Maggie Thatcher, who some of you might remember, could get by on 4 hours sleep a night. It was fine for her. She managed it and she was highly effective on it. But when we try and do that, it's not great. I'm just looking at some of the numbers. 6 to 8. 6, 6.5, 7, 6.5. Okay, so between 6 and 8 seems to be the standard. Thank you for adding that in. So as I say, 7 to 8 hours quality sleep is needed. Now, what do I mean by quality sleep? Well, you've probably heard of REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, and that is a phase of sleep when our brain is repairing. So what happens when we go to sleep is, first of all, the brain starts to detox the body from everything we've taken on board during the day. So it is incredibly important to try and finish eating 2 or 3 hours before you go to bed, preferably 3 hours, because if you eat late at night, that first 2 or 3 hours when you're actually in bed and should be in that deep quality sleep, your brain and your body are digesting that last meal. So a really good habit to get into is to finish eating, eat early, finish eating 2 or 3 hours before you go to bed, preferably 3 hours. So once the brain has detoxed, what it then focuses on is analyzing all the information you've taken on board, and it stores some of that information and it deletes some of that information. So it's really processing everything that went on. Also during the night, the cerebrospinal fluid that bathes our spine and our brain goes into overdrive. It's almost like a vacuum, and it cleans out anything that it wants to get rid of. So literally, if you have good quality sleep, it's like starting the day with a clean slate. And then one of the other things the brain does is it generates new brain cells. So the quicker you can get into that deep REM sleep, the quicker the brain can do the work it needs to do and start generating those new brain cells. And let's face it, don't we all need as many brain cells as we can have? And then finally, friends and family. It's really important to keep up that contact with friends and family, particularly while we're in lockdown. And I know a lot of you are doing online calls, online quizzes, cocktail hours, etc. We use Zoom a lot in our family and with our friends, and it's great fun. And we spend the whole time chatting and laughing and sharing experiences. When you're doing that with people that really care about you and you care about, you release another feel-good hormone, which is oxytocin. And oxytocin makes us feel loved. It makes us feel we belong, and it builds trust and happiness. And don't we all want that right now? It also builds feelings of generosity and gratitude. So make sure you're keeping up that time with friends and family. All of these things, all of these ways of powering us up will mean that we are bringing the best version of ourselves to every interaction we have, which means that we can be as significant as we possibly can with everybody that we're dealing with, in a work sense, in a social sense, and really have a lasting impact in whatever we're doing. Let's now just look at the next thing I want to share with you. Evolution and growth. I mentioned self-actualization earlier on as being, one of the hierarchies of needs of human beings. And this is a brilliant time to continue learning. There have never been so many ways to learn as there are right now. When you think of what you're doing now on a webinar, when you think of the podcasts, the YouTube videos, TED Talks, all the online courses, which we've been bombarded with. And I'm sure some of you, like me, have signed up to online courses in the past and never got round to them, but still have the recordings. I've got one that I'm working through this week that I signed up to several months ago and just didn't get time to do. So this is a great time to carry on learning. And then working with a coach and a mentor. Do you know, this time, this lockdown, it's so unprecedented. We're having time to step back, to review where we are, to look at what we're doing, and to really think if this is what we want to be doing for the rest of our lives, or if now is an opportunity to start changing direction. And it's a wonderful way to accelerate that process, working with a coach or a mentor. And I've engaged a mentor for this phase just for that reason, so that I can reevaluate what I'm doing, the value I'm offering, and where I'm going forward. So I really recommend you spend some time with a coach and a mentor and use this as a period of reflection, reevaluation, and growth. You may well have been wanting to do an accreditation in your area of expertise, but haven't had the time to do it. This is a perfect time to address that, because most accreditors are now putting their courses online. So wouldn't it be brilliant to go back to the workplace with an added accreditation to what you do right now, and all the knowledge that that brings that you can then share with your colleagues and your clients? And then I just wanted to mention the stretch zone. So I talk about 3 zones. We have our comfort zone. If you think of that as a circle, we have our stretch zone, which is the outer circle. And then out with that is another circle called the discomfort zone. Now, if you were to try and go from your comfort zone, where you are right now, to your discomfort zone in one step, that would feel really tough, really challenging. But we can step much easier into the next zone, the stretch zone. And I'm a great believer that we should be stretching all the time. And when I'm working with clients, I always ask them, when were you scared this month, this last month since our last session? When were you scared? And if they say I wasn't, then I say, well, you're playing it too safe. I'm a great believer in we should be scared regularly, because fear is a sign that we're stretching. And stretching is a sign that we're growing. And we weren't put on this planet just to stay the same and just do the same old day after day after day. We were put on this planet to stretch and grow and tap into the amazing potential we all have. So when was the last time you were afraid? And how are you stretching out of your comfort zone? Because the magic thing is, when you enter that stretch zone, that then becomes your comfort zone. And your discomfort zone becomes your stretch zone. And so you keep evolving. And a final word in this, there are only 2 things that grow in the comfort zone. That is dissatisfaction and waistlines. And let's face it, none of us want that. My final point on evolution and growth is inspiring connections. Now, I'm sure you've all heard the quote from Jim Rohn saying, we're only as good as the 5 people we spend most of our time with. I'm excluding family in that. I'm thinking about the people we spend time with who have a big influence on our lives out with our family. And there's 2 types of people in the world. There are radiators and there are drains. And I'm sure you all know some of each. The drains are those people who, when you meet them, they want to tell you everything that's wrong in their life, everything that's wrong with their family, with their partner, with their work, with their body. And they revel in being a victim. And within 5 minutes of being in their company, you have lost the will to live. I call them energy vampires. I can almost feel them sucking the lifeblood out of me as they speak. They will try and keep you small, because when they see you stretching and growing, it threatens their own security, and they feel that they have to stretch and grow, and they don't want to do that. They want to stay exactly where they are. So they will discourage you from trying anything new. They will tell you you're absolutely wonderful the way you are, and they will discourage you from stretching and growing. On the other hand, radiators are the people who are constantly evolving and growing, and they want to see you evolve and grow, and they will pull you up with them. They will encourage you. They will advise you and inspire you to keep stretching and growing. And, you know, we can find them online right now if you haven't got those people in your lives. If you go onto LinkedIn, you'll find some amazing groups that you can join that meet up regularly online, and you can be inspired by them. Or you could start your own inspiring mastermind group, for example. People that you admire, that you know, bringing them together once a week or once a month and just sharing best practices. So evolution and growth is so essential for our confidence and our self-esteem. And when we're evolving and growing, we can have a significant impact on everybody that we interact with on a daily basis. Then no point in taking on all that value if you're not sharing it. And it's never been easier than it is today to share our value. Look at all the wonderful social media channels that are open to us. We can write blogs and articles. We can have interviews. Right now, journalists are looking for interviews with business people that are not about COVID-19. They have been inundated with information and top tips and surviving this time. They're actually looking for interviews with people just about the business. Where are they going? What's their vision for the future? So great thing to do is to follow journalists. You can follow them on Twitter, find out what they're looking for, and put yourself forward for an interview. Raise your profile and share your value during this period of lockdown. And this is a great time, if you're not doing it already, to get familiar with creating your own videos. Now, I use my phone and I create videos on my phone at least 3 times a week and share them across my social media channels. And literally, it takes 2 minutes. I've got a great little, it's a selfie stick. This is it. It opens up, it holds my phone, and it's also a tripod. So I can set it to any height I want. It's really light, so I can carry it in my handbag when I'm out and about. But I just sit it on my desk, set it to the right height, put my phone in it. It's got a little remote control with it as well, so I can just click on when I want to start. And I've got a great video. And then I just airdrop it to my Mac and I share it across social media. So that is something to get really familiar with, because people much prefer to watch you than to read what you've written. And videos are watched 80% more than any written text. So get familiar with using video, with using podcasts. And again, there's lots of YouTube videos on how to do that effectively. Networking can still carry on online. And I'm sure you, like me, have got hundreds, if not thousands of connections on your social media platforms. There are people who've connected with you or you've connected with them, and it's just stopped dead right there. So now's the time to get networking online, to look those people up, to suss out which people you've got mutual interest with and people that you could collaborate with. You could help them, they could help you, or you could work together. Send a personal message and suggest you have a Zoom call and start building more profitable and more lucrative relationships with those people, rather than just having them as a name or a number on your social media channels. And then, of course, you can speak. Now, I'm a speaker and I love to speak to live audiences. I love running masterclasses, live masterclasses. I can't do that right now, but I can share my value by speaking on camera like I'm doing right now. And so what value could you share in a webinar format? Now, I know Karen from Enshrine Placements is looking for lots of people to run fantastic webinars for her. So if you've got a topic that would be of interest to this audience, then let her know. Have a chat with her and see if that's something that she'd like to deliver for you. And sharing your value, again, it means that you're making a significant difference to the business world at this time of lockdown and insecurity. And you'll be seen as a giver, because most of us are doing this for free. And it feels really good to be giving something back that is helping others to thrive during this time. Finally, and one, as I said, which is very close to my heart, is about being present. Would you believe that we are seldom, if not never, fully present wherever we are? We can be in the room, but we're not actually fully in the room. And what do I mean by that? Well, very often, I mean, some of you right now will be on this webinar and you'll be thinking, oh, I've got a call at 11 o'clock, right? I'm going to have to dive out at 10 to 11. So I've got time to make a cup of coffee. So you're half listening to what I'm saying, but half of your mind is thinking about what you're going on to next. And this happens all the time. You might be at a networking event and you're chatting to somebody, you ask them what they do, and instead of actually listening to them, you're thinking about what you're going to say or what clever question you can ask next. So you're not actually taking on board what they're saying. Another thing that often happens, particularly if you're physically traveling, is you might have left a few minutes late. And of course, when you leave a few minutes late, don't you always get stuck in slow traffic and lots of roadworks? And so you're even later. And as you get nearer and nearer to your appointment, and it's getting later and later, you're getting more and more stressed out. Then what we tend to do is to walk in and download that stress on the person or the people that we're meeting and tell them what a dreadful journey we had and all the roadworks and the learner driver, etc. And what we're doing when we do that is we're bringing negative energy into the room, and we're depleting the energy of the people that are in that room. So change your state is about taking a couple of minutes before you enter a meeting, even if you're late, to get into the right state and not go into that room in a right state. So how do we change our state? Well, we all have, as I'm sure you know, we all have an energy field around us. Some people refer to it as your aura, but all of us are surrounded by particles of energy. That energy either feels really positive and welcoming, or it can feel quite closed and negative. And to change our state from that negative stress state that we arrived in late, just pause before you walk through the door. Think about something that's going well for you, something that you're grateful for, and get into that feeling of gratitude. Or something I'd like you to try right now is just put your arms out and put them like that, imagining you're about to hug somebody that you love, somebody special in your life. Close your eyes now and just imagine hugging that person. Just take a moment. How does that make you feel? Pop a couple of words in the chat box about how that makes you feel. If you do any of those three things before you walk into that room, you will walk in with a calm and positive energy field that people want to be in, rather than that stressed out person that's coming in and offloading their stress on everybody else. Being the best version of you, that's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So there's lots of things that we can do to be the best version of you. One of them is being well prepared. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Warm, calm, relaxed and loved, warm and cozy. Thank you. Positive. Yes, love it. Being the best version of you is as practical as looking your best. Now, you'll notice that there's a lot of yellow on this screen. You'll notice that I'm wearing yellow. It is one of my branding colors and it's one of my favorite colors. But not only that, for my 40th birthday, somebody gifted me a color and style consultation. And I don't know whether you've ever done anything like that, but the consultant brought lots of swatches of materials, held them up against my face so we could instantly see what drained my skin tone and what energized and brightened it. And so I now only wear a palette of colors that are right for me, and yellow is one of them. So when I'm wearing yellow, I feel energized, I feel well, I feel confident. And that is reflected in my persona as I walk into a room. Walking in looking like you got dressed in the dark, or you've just walked the dog and come straight to the meeting, it doesn't give a good first impression. And first impressions are made within a tenth of a second. So it's important. Then walking in feeling fit and healthy, you've had a good night's sleep, you're looking after your body, you're feeling valued, you're feeling good. That will be related in your body language. And then it's about being well prepared, which is my next point. If it's a meeting where you've got input, it's making sure you've done all the prep work for it. If it's a networking event, make sure you've practiced your answer to what do you do and you've made it benefit laden. Or you've practiced your elevator pitch. That's 60 seconds when you get to stand up and talk about your offering in your business. If you're feeling well prepared and you're looking great, then you bring a whole different persona into that meeting than you would if you were stressed and feeling tired and overwhelmed and you're not eating well, etc., etc. Undiluted listening is what I referred to earlier. It's about being in the room and fully listening to people and not thinking about what you're going to say next. But in the words of Stephen Covey, it's actually listening to understand. And very few of us do this. When we're in conversation, we're constantly thinking about what clever thing we can say next, or what great question could we ask next. And we're only half listening to that person, and they can sense that. Now, I want to just talk a little bit more about this being in the room. And so many of us have regrets. All of us, in fact, have regrets from the past. Let's face it. You know, we might regret not working harder at school. We might regret not spending more time with our kids when they were young. We might regret not working harder to achieve our ideal weight. We might regret our choice of life partner, as I did first time around. You know, there's lots of things we can regret, and not even long term. We might just regret that we didn't get through our to-do list yesterday, or that we ate badly, or we didn't exercise. And yet we can't change one iota of anything that happened just a nanosecond ago. So why do we let our brains, our valuable energy and our brain space be taken up with regrets of things we cannot change? It is so important to leave it, learn from it, leave it and move on. However, at the other end of the spectrum, so many of us are longing for that utopia. We're waiting for that time when we've got all the qualifications we want. We've moved into our dream home. We're financially secure. We're with our ideal partner. We've got all the money in the bank we need. We're our ideal way, and everything in the garden is rosy. And I hate to burst your bubble, but that time may never come. But the problem is that that bit between the past and the future, it becomes like a corridor that we're racing along, and we miss the magic of being in the present. We miss the simple joys in every day, like waking up and seeing the sunrise, like waking up and actually hearing the birds sing, like walking in our garden and noticing all the new flowers and buds that have sprung up that day, hearing nuances in conversation, sensing how people are feeling. We miss it because our brain is so full of regret or of that future focus. And yet, do you know, when you live fully in the present, life is so much easier. It's magical because wherever you are, you're playing full out. You're giving your undivided attention to people. You're giving them that gift of undiluted listening. And they don't only feel listened to, they feel heard and they feel valued. So be present, because that's when you become truly significant. That's when you leave a lasting impact that will last long, long after you've left the room. And that's when you lead by example. People with a strong personal presence recognize and celebrate their uniqueness. And with that recognition comes a magnetic energy that is totally irresistible. When you're doing everything you can to be the best version of you, when you are playing to your strengths, living life in flow and being fully present, you are awesome. You are unstoppable. So wherever you are, just be totally present and just feel the impact that has and feel how magical life becomes. So in summary, recognize and celebrate your uniqueness and spend 75 to 80% of your time doing the work that you love and being fully in flow. Bring the best version of you to every interaction and be totally present. I have a couple of special offers. They're on my website. The web address is down below. Becoming More Significant is a 6-step coaching program, 6 90-minute sessions. And because of this lockdown period and finances, I have taken an enormous chunk of the investment cost. And so there are the costs right there. And if you book this right now, you are saving £2,000 in UK money or 16,635 Rand. Now, I promise the contribution compass profile, it's normally £60 in UK money. I'm offering that to you for £50. Which is 1,162 Rand. It will give you great insight into your natural strengths, your challenges, your ideal roles, the perfect people for you to collaborate with. And if you're coming on Monday's webinar, it will enable you to get so much more value from that webinar. So more details on my website, sylviabaldock.com. And I just want to finish with that wonderful quote from Oprah Winfrey. Don't worry about being successful. Work towards becoming significant, and success will naturally follow. Thank you so much for being with me. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat box and I will answer them now. If you would rather message me privately, it's just sylvia@sylviabaldock.com. And if you'd like to go on my monthly newsletter, which is full of top tips, then again, email me on sylvia@sylviabaldock.com. I'm going to just stay on the line for the next 10 minutes. So if you've got anything you'd like to put in the chat box, I shall watch out for it. But wherever you are, go out, be present, be more significant, and watch the success follow. Hey, Ignacio, I really like wearing yellow shirts. Wonderful. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chelsea. I appreciate your feedback. Thank you, Sam. It's always lovely to get feedback because you never know how what you're doing is landing. Thank you, Monique. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Onwell. Thank you, David. Thank you, Christelle. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Thank you, Russell. Wow, it's all coming in so quickly. Thank you, Etienne. Thank you. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Vaughn. I'll add you to the newsletter, Vaughn. I certainly will. Thank you. Thank you, Ignacia. Thank you, Kugasan. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you, Lyndon. Thank you, Luanda. Thank you, Cesar. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Thank you. Thank you, Kreben. It comes in 90-minute cycles. So in 6 hours, you're going to get 4 90-minute cycles. Thank you, Madoda. Thank you, Clinton. Thank you. Eliminate the noise of work and focus on becoming significant. Thank you. If you just email me, sylvia@sylviabaldock.com with your email address, I will add you in. Thank you. I hope to see many of you on Monday's webinar when we will be looking at how to be more in flow in your life and enjoy tapping into that unlimited potential that you all have. And we're all only scratching the surface of our potential. There's so much more there, and it's so exciting. Okay, I'm going to end the live session. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and see you Monday.